my identity is multiple sentences. It's almost as if I have a bio of
Yeah.
I am Caribbean American expat living in London. And I always felt like two people outside of home and inside of home. And I know somebody at the diaspora understands exactly what I mean.
Mm.
And when I would bring people into my world or somebody call the house and ask for me and heard my father's accent, they're like, what?
I say it's the best of both worlds. Being Jamaican, I had the same experience where, especially when, as you say, you're with your accent and there's the accent, there's the patois. As Black women, we often question our route to success, right? And our
Mm-mm.
validity. Although we have the marks, not the marks, but really the journey to prove it.
I was the corporate girl that travels for work with men.
Mm.
And I would lead with that because I felt it gave me credibility, it gave me value, it gave me worth. And looking back, I was so much more than that. I'm bigger than a title, I'm bigger than a role. We will put ourselves through burnout to prove ourselves, right? So I can be Black, I could be of mixed heritage with the Asian last name, I could be Trinidadian, I could have, American cultural experience. I could be all these things at once. One doesn't cancel the other. It still
Yes.
exists. So
Yes.
identities can exist and coexist all at once.
Anyway, hi, welcome back to this episode of How Do You Divine? And today we are going to speak to Jo Wang on how we have come to define identity. Jo, how are you?
I am good. How are you? How is New York?
New York is in full summer, spring mode because one day it's summer, the next day it's spring. But New York summer, I feel like is a movement. It's a vibe. You know what I mean? Like be New
Mm,
York in the summertime, there's no better rooftop. I'll put money
no,
on that.
sure.
Okay, there's no better rooftop than a rooftop in New York City. But then there are days that the heat is offensive. We in one of
Yeah,
those days. We're in one of those days.
I hear it. I hear it. I hear it.
So, Joe, when we spoke about being on the podcast, something that I
Hmm.
think just resonated in our conversations was around exploring identity, right? And I think it's
Hmm.
Black women in corporate, as well as founders and entrepreneurs and moms, right? How
Hmm.
we've come to identify ourselves range in different seasons of our lives. And I wanted to take you back to like the first day Joe said, "Who is Joe? Who is Joe Wang?"
So love how you say Wang. It's Wong, but I'll only let you call me Wang. So who is Jo Wong? It's interesting. I feel like when you meet somebody for the first time and you're pulling back all the layers or you're beginning the introduction of yourself, there's always this internal battle of what am I going to share? Like, if it is, where are you from?
Yeah.
That simple question of where are you from, I find so difficult because, as I shared with you, I am from Trinidad, but as you can hear from my accent, I left when I was young, but that is my identity. I'm Trinidadian. We lived in Canada. I grew up in Chicago. I went to school in Florida. I lived in Miami. So all those places are a part of my identity. Like if I see something about the Chicago Bulls, that's nostalgic for me. If there's something about City Girls, I'm like, I'm a Miami girl. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
there's so many layers. And now as you know, I live in London. So I
Yes.
meet people all the time and they're just like, who are you? Where are you
Yes.
from? And I don't even know
How to
what
answer.
to say. But you tend to just go the easiest answer
Mm.
because it's how much time do you have? Because I'm not a one sentence,
Mm.
if that makes sense. My identity is multiple sentences. It's almost as if I have a bio of
Yeah.
I am Caribbean American expat living in London, a mother, a
Yes.
business owner, once corporate. But yeah, a lot of my identity is just wrapped up in so many things.
I love how you took us through the journey of all the places, right, that have made you who you are. But it also makes me feel like being a Black woman in these different spaces also shape not just like our physical identity, but who we are internally, right? So take me back to young Joe. Was young Joe just a Trinidadian girl in Canada? Like how has that evolved?
Young Joe. I would say young. So I went through evolutions of my name. So my full name is Josanne,
Hmm.
and nobody calls me Josanne but like my family. So I would say young Josanne was in Chicago, and I always felt like two people outside of home and inside of home. And I know somebody at the diaspora understands exactly what I mean.
Hmm.
So in Chicago, there's not a massive Caribbean, West Indian population. So at school, I was, I guess, from the outside, African American, Black, and I immersed myself in the culture and, face value, that's what it was. But then I would go home to this other world, and my mom would be in the house with the wrap skirt on, playing soca, eating, pilau and stewed chicken. And, I just felt like I was always managing two worlds. And
Yes.
when I would bring people into my world or somebody called the house and asked for me and heard my father's accent, they're like, what? It was just really interesting to facilitate both spaces and learning that from a young age. And it doesn't help. I have an Asian last name. So first day of school, they say Josanne Wongshing, and I'd raise my hand, and they're like, no, no, we said Josanne Wongshing, and I'd have to sit there and be like, that's my name. And that was just off the box. So I never
Yes.
felt like my identity matched anything I had seen before as a child. So I felt like I was always reinventing myself
Ooh,
for that reason.
I love that. And I think so many of us can relate to the managing of two worlds, right? I say it's the best of both worlds. Being Jamaican, I had the same, kind of experience where, especially when, as you say, you with your accent and there's the accent, there's the patois, but navigating those spaces, especially with a unique name. How was that for you in school? Like, who is Josanne? Like, I know you had so many conversations as a child. How did you navigate that space, like in middle school, high school?
I actually think it gave me, I was very extroverted, I was very friendly. And I think because I felt different, I gravitated to people that felt different. And
Mm.
my friends used to joke with me because, when we were walking in school in the hallway, I would say hi to everyone. I knew everyone. I,
Same.
I don't want to say I was popular, I was social.
Same.
There was like the
Same.
weird kid that used to duct tape everything. I was friends with him. I found him fascinating. I was like, what's up? We good. And I think because I felt out of water,
Yes.
I recognized that in other people.
People.
So there was always this. So I was into indie rock music, but also hip hop. I was in dance. I was into theater. I did multiple things. And I was always in multiple groups of friends because of that.
But I love how you gave yourself permission to be Joe at
Mm,
an early age, right? Because that is an outsider's perspective, right? I think when we are in these spaces like school and things like that, you want to acclimate, right? I always say as much as we hear stand out, especially in Caribbean community, right? Yes, you see if you don't stand for something, you fall for everything. So your parents tell you to be who you are and all of these things. But when you get into the school setting, you really just want to acclimate. You just want to
yeah.
blend in. But I love how you identified early on that I'm an outsider, so I want to see, I'm finding the outsiderness in everyone else. That was and so tell me about how that helped build this bold human that we come to know. Because I think that was such a bold move, even as a child, right? Yep, I have a
Mm.
unique name. I'm Trinidadian. Like, here I am. What's up? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was telling somebody the story the other day. So in school, we had, I don't know if you guys did this. I tell people in England, and they're like, what is that? We had something called the real life project, and we had to get a real job, not get a job, but like a fake, a real job, pay rent, balance our checkbook. And mind you, we're in Chicago. And everybody had normal jobs and stuff in Chicago. And I was a flight attendant that lived in Miami. Never been to Miami before. But in my head, I'm not staying here. I'm traveling the world. So I was a flight attendant. I lived in Coral Gables. I had a sports car, whatever, whatever. And the irony of it is kind of manifested my life in
I
a
was
weird
just gonna
way
say that.
because I ended up having a travel position in Miami. I did not live far from Coral Gables. I did have a two, like a sports car. And it's not till I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I was like, wait a minute, I kind of manifested this life. I've never been to Miami before. I just, in my head, I want to live somewhere it was hot. I want to travel. But I always had this like bigger vision. And you know what talking to you, I think I could attest it to, and you can maybe speak to this. My mother had me travel from young, and I was exposed to the world.
Yeah.
So I had seen more than Chicago. I
Yes.
had went back to Trinidad almost every summer and spent time
Mm-hmm.
with family and was exposed to different cultures and backgrounds. I'd be in Brooklyn for the summer. I'd be in Orlando. And I think that just opened myself up that there's a world bigger than here.
Yes. And that you can dream, right? And
Right.
I think in the Caribbean culture, we don't necessarily identify it as dreaming. It's like ambition and it's usually
Mm,
targeted towards like a career aspiration, right? Be a nurse, be a doctor, be a lawyer. And you don't realize when
mm.
you open up yourself to the world, your identity starts to change as well because it doesn't just become who I am, it's what I want to be.
No, I think so. And I think looking at my family dynamics and looking at my parents, and had so many people in proximity of all different backgrounds and type of jobs and in occupations, so you're just exposed to more, you realize more, and
Yes.
I definitely think it shaped me differently in terms of what I felt as a concept I could be in the future.
And I love that in middle school, you're like, I'm going to be a flight attendant. I'm going to live in Miami. I'm going to have a sports car. Because to me, that level of detail shows you that you've always aspired to have a good day-to-day life, right? I think
Mm.
sometimes when people are like I love this real world project. I've never heard about it before, but now I'm like everyone should implement this in their in the curriculum.
Seriously.
Every child should have a real world project because it
Seriously.
makes you aspire to what your day-to-day life is versus like this ultimate goal, right? Because I think when we think about what we want to be and who we want to be in life, it's like I want to be wealthy. I want to be rich. Like, it's
Right.
always like this one singular target. It's not actually what my days are and who I want to be.
Mm. And I will say my mom, the things I will definitely take with her with my little one is she showed me nice things. She showed me
Mm,
luxury. She showed
yeah.
me I deserve it more than anyone. And she also talked to me about what it takes to earn it.
Yeah.
And I
I
remember
love
if I wanted something, I really wanted this boom box. And she was like, all right, save half of it and I'll put in the other half and you'll get this. And so I understood what it was to work towards something. I wanted a car. I babysat all summer, weeks
yes.
and weeks and weeks to save up a down payment. And so there was definitely this aspect of you do deserve, in terms of like a growth, abundance mindset, it
Yes.
was always instilled in me. And my partner now grew up very different. He
Mhm.
grew up English, working class, nice things. You don't get nice things. That's not for you. And classism is something I've learned a lot more evident here. So when I see him interact with certain things, I realize he wasn't raised with an abundance mindset. And I think instilling that in me so young, it was like, what can I not do? What can
That
I not
part.
have? You know,
That
but
part.
but I think it's the work ethic and the sacrifice it takes for it is
Mm,
what I don't necessarily think people connect with all the time. So it wasn't just you deserve nice things and there's a sense of entitlement. It was you
yeah.
deserve nice things, but nice things take sacrifices.
And hard work.
You're going to need to work hard. You're going to need to not do things. There were summers I didn't hang out with friends because I was working.
Oh, girl, talk to me about it. I had a job since I
Yeah.
was 15. So talk,
Same, same.
so
But
talk to me
but
about
she
it.
gave me the gift of earning something.
Yeah.
When I drove that car around, it was like my
This is
thing
my
nice.
thing.
Like it's my car. I'm sweat, blood, and tears went into this. So I
Yes.
definitely thank her for that. Like,
I
and I will do
love
the
that.
same for sure, the river.
I know, I love that. And I want to talk about how that mindset of abundance like shaped your identity when you entered corporate.
I don't think it did. I think it shut down. I think in corporate,
Oh,
I always had this weird mindset that like I snuck in the back door and they're gonna figure out at any moment I'm not supposed to be here. for a long time.
Really?
Yeah. I
Really?
really felt like they're gonna, the gig is up. They're gonna figure out. She has no idea what she's doing. And I'm
I
like,
think that's so
thank
interesting,
you.
thinking of all
Thank you
you're
so much for your
accomplished.
no, thank you so much for your contribution. But what,
Good day, man.
Um, but yeah, I felt like that for a really, really long time because just to give kind of my story, I started off on the sales floor, Mac makeup artist, beating faces, but I was always commercial. I always looked at sales. I always knew what my goal was. I always walked in on a Saturday with already my sales goal in for the week, if not month, and
Nice.
I'd be there chilling while
Yeah.
everyone else is scrambling to make their target. And it was just always natural for me, and it didn't feel like work. And I think because of that, when I moved into corporate and stepped into that space, I didn't take the traditional route. I
Mm.
wasn't recruited from a sense of finishing my MBA and going into corporate. I was I was staff. I was on the sales floor, and then I
Graduated.
was able to step in. Yeah, and I think because of that, I was like, oh, they're gonna figure out I'm actually a makeup artist that just can calculate sales. Not
That
know what
is
I'm doing.
good at the operations and organizations of sales
Yeah,
structure. But
yeah.
I always feel like as Black women, we often question our route to success, right?
Mm,
And our
mm,
validity. Although we have like the marks, the not the marks, but really the journey to prove it, right? So that's why
mm,
I wouldn't say it's like an imposter syndrome. I just think sometimes we're sold that this is what corporate executives should have. You should go to
right.
Stanford. You should go to
Yeah.
Harvard. You should have an MBA. You should have written a review. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is the
Mm.
structure that the identity of an executive should have.
100%. Like I was meticulous to the point of how I wore my hair or how I dressed, or I mean, I still was getting it wrong. I don't know what kind of outfits I was wearing when I first started. I was wearing bodycon dresses, thinking I was doing something a mess, a mess. But I just wanted to fit the part. I wanted
Yeah.
to be taken seriously. I wanted to fit the part. I wanted everyone to believe I knew what I was doing. And the confidence slowly came as what I was doing was working and it
Yeah.
was sticking and I was seeing the impact and I was seeing I'm very results driven. So seeing that as well. But I think the mistake I made was that then became my identity.
Ooh.
Instead of me being Jo Wong, I was the corporate girl that travels for work with Matt.
Mm.
And I would lead with that because I felt it gave me credibility, it gave me value, it gave me worth. And looking back, I was so much more than that. But
Yeah.
that, because it was so much of my identity, I feel like it steered my relationships, good and bad.
Yeah.
Uh, I sacrificed a lot of things, wanting to keep proving myself. And it became almost addictive to be that
Yeah.
corporate girly and whatnot. And it wasn't until COVID I took a step back and I said, but what does this even mean?
Who am I even outside of this?
Right, right. And I think it was COVID where it was really a look in the mirror of who are you? As
Yeah.
I like fell apart, nails, lashes, hair in a
All of the
house.
maintenance appointments were no longer being made. No,
Listen, it was
it's such,
rough, literally rough. But yeah, I had to like face myself and
yes.
just have that really deep conversation of who are you?
And not just who are you, what do you want to be? I think COVID did that for
Mhm,
many people, right? Across the world, where the things that we have used to armor ourselves as who we are and what we are in this world were no longer available.
mhm.
And then you had to like look at yourself square in the face and say, but who am I outside of these things?
Mm. No, I agree. I agree. And I think my identity in terms of am I supposed to be a wife? Am I supposed to be a mother? Should I stay in London? Because I moved. I all I had was me. And I packed up everything and moved here for a career
Yeah.
and sacrificed being away from friends and family. relationships, whatever. So when I met my now partner, and I was, I guess you could say, introducing myself for the first time, there was a lot of self-discovery because he was actually one of the first people I had been with where I was so raw and authentic. It's like no
Nice.
lashes, no nails, no wig, just rough. And
Good.
I kind of had this, kind
Just
of had this like,
real.
yeah, very real. And I kind of had this mentality of like, you could take it or leave it. This is just what it is. And
Love
we were
it.
very aligned in values. So it was one of the first relationships I just used to speak so openly about how I felt about things or how I wanted to live my life or things I wanted for myself. And yeah, I think that's when I started really learning who I was.
Yes. But I often, this is a good conversation because I think we don't realize sometimes how we become the things, right?
Hmm.
The who we are is the career, the titles, but we lose ourselves in just trying to maintain the titles, the mom, the sister, the friend, you know what I mean? So actually, this was like a great journey for you because you've already separated yourself from an environment standpoint, right? You moved to London in pursuit of this career. So now I am Joe, I'm this executive, I am killing it in corporate, and now COVID happens. So
Mm.
there is no more work, there is no more title.
Yeah,
Who is Joe?
who is Joe? And then when I left Estee Lauder and I went to Farfetch, I made a conscious decision to be Jo Wong is me, right? Because I used to I used to reward a lot of my success to the company I worked for, not the work I did.
Oh,
So when I stepped away from Lauder, I was like, no, 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 no. I did all that because of me. When another company approached me, I was like, oh wait, I'm actually a big deal. I can do some things. And when they appreciated my skills and my expertise and my work, I then realized I'm bigger than a title, I'm bigger than a role. And that's when I really separated the two. I was
yes.
who I was at work, and I was very dedicated to what I did at work. But I also had my own personal brand. And that's when I really started investing in social media and doing content and just speaking like about myself
Yes.
in a way that not worried about my perception or how people would view it. Because I think sometimes with social media, you want the audience to love you from an algorithm or whatever the case is. But what I found on social media is I found my tribe. I
Yes.
found my spiritual, witchy, vegan, vegetarian, expat. Like I found my people and I was like, oh, they're out
Yes.
here. And the more I was just like really honest and authentic about who I was as an identity in these platforms, the more I found my people
I love
in
that.
that.
I love that. And you've taught me that. You've told me time and time again, Sanika, I want to see more of you online. And I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm
Good,
definitely
good.
going to do that. But I think you pointed out something that is so unique and powerful that I wanted to just double click on. Look, my corporate speak, double click. Like,
Circle back.
right? Circling back about that unique moment where you start to separate your role in your company with your
Mhm,
skills, right? And I think as Black women, often we are just like, we're achieving a quota, we're getting the quotas done, we're building the projects, we're making sure things are getting done for the company. And so much of our effort we equate to an entity and a role, but we don't
mhm,
sometimes look in the mirror and say, Sanika, look at what you've learned, look at what you've accomplished, right? As Black
mhm,
women, and
mhm,
then focus on those skills and highlight those skills because those
mhm,
skills
mhm.
is what empowers you as a professional. But then it also
Yeah.
reassures you as a human being that you're growing and you're becoming who you want to be.
No, absolutely. I think when I decided to do my MBA, it was also to validate myself because I know I know the work,
Yeah.
right? But it was a confirmation for me to say all this experience, it wasn't by mistake.
Yeah.
the success I had. And that's what the MBA confirmed for me. I understood the content. I have more context now to speak to things and a different level of confidence. And I'm happy I did it the way I did it. I'm
Yeah.
happy I didn't stop working and go and do it to validate myself. I did it after I found some great success. But yeah, I agree. I think sometimes, yeah, we don't, and I see this with the founders I work with, we don't value ourselves enough in terms of what we charge,
Yeah.
our prices, our value in terms of access to us,
Yeah.
the work we contribute and give to companies. We will put ourselves through burnout to prove ourselves.
We will.
And that in itself is one of the barriers we face.
All the time, right? And I think a part of that is knowing your identity separate from all the things, right? Separate from being the mom, being the wife, being the partner, being the executive, being the corporate
Mhm.
girly. I think a large portion of that is making space to be well. And I talk about this all the
Mhm.
time that if we're not pursuing wellness for Sanika. Like if Sanika is not saying, what does Sanika need today? Do I need an
Mm.
hour of silence? Do I need tea? Do I need to walk? Do I need to get out my own head? Right? I think we are easily so critical of ourselves, like who we are. Like, oh, you know, you have an attitude. Oh, you know, you short. Like, you know what I mean? We're so critical of ourselves sometimes that we don't even make space for wellness
Mhm.
to become who we are.
Right. And I think in addition to that, we don't show up in those spaces as ourselves.
Mm.
Similar to when I started working in corporate, I came in as this caricature of myself or this,
Yes.
this
Oh,
person that I'm not.
yes.
But I felt the same in marriage relationship. I felt the same becoming a mother. Moms don't do that or this and this. And I've just made a commitment that I'm going to show up in all these roles, still my identity in
Yeah.
my way,
Yeah.
not pushing that down. I am a fun mom. I love to dance. I love to have a good time with my daughter. That's who we are. And
Yes.
if I didn't show up like that, I would be becoming something else. So I
Yeah.
think it's just like protecting your identity in these different roles as well and
Ugh.
not suppressing it.
And how did you get comfortable doing that? Right. I think it's such a journey. Do you think COVID was your journey in becoming more comfortable in the identity of Joe and then taking the layers? Because I always see it as the nucleus, right? You just the identity of
Mm.
me, and then it's the mom, then it's all the things outside of that. How did you get comfortable there?
I don't even know if I still am sometimes, though. I feel like it's
Mm.
been a journey and I'm still on the journey
Yes.
because you still have like the
You'll always have
saboteur
moments.
voices.
Yes, and you'll always have moments, and it's okay. But I
Yeah,
think,
I know, but I think it's accepting that
yeah,
and just knowing I just function better when I'm like that. It's almost just like it's a necessity to get
yeah,
by. Like my
yeah.
girlfriend messaged me today and she's like, "Can we go out dancing this weekend?" I was like, "Please, I need
Can
to
we?
hear some music. Like, I need to not suppress that part of me because I'm a mom now and this and this,
Yes.
and you'll be 40. I still have to like feed that. I still have to pour into myself in that way."
Because then I think once we start to put those things away, we become less and less of who we are,
Hmm.
and then start to fall for who we've been told we should be. Right? Like
Hmm.
you said, like if you're a mom, you can't do this. If you're now, you're a founder, you can't do this. And it ultimately, I think it slowly just decreases our value of who we are.
Agree.
Not
Agree.
believing
Definitely.
that who I am today is probably not who I want to be. I still have goals and aspirations as we all do, but I think part
Mm.
of that getting comfortable with identity is knowing that it's a journey that I'm guiding.
Yeah. And I think there's also the element of deprogramming yourself to what identity you've been taught.
Mm. Girl,
And I
we
think,
from the Caribbean. You
yeah, so there's been a lot of decentering of what a companion partner does and what a career looks like. And you know what I mean? And it's just like it doesn't bring anybody. it
Joy.
doesn't serve anybody, right? To become something just because that's what they say or that's what you've been told. But I've always been one to question things,
The
you know,
roles,
and
right? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But that is a good thing. And tell me, how do you think you're pouring that into River now? Like how is Joe as the mom helping her find her identity is just a little bean right now, but every single
Right, a
day.
loud one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I yeah, I think just letting her embrace herself and her
Yeah.
she is who she is. And she
Yeah.
has a very unique, very specific personality. And she has a fight in her.
Yes.
And she's very emotionally in tuned,
Yes.
you know, when she's upset and she's very vulnerable. And even if it inconveniences me or stresses me, I just let her have it because I
Yeah.
want her to embrace that as well. Um, and she's very intuitive in terms of energies. So I realize like my energy is very transferable to her. So something I'm still, you know, work in progress, but I try to be present. Because now she's so funny. Like if I'm on my phone, she goes in my face like this, like, hello.
Girl, you don't see
I
me
was
sitting right here?
like,
Like
this little girl, she'll put her whole
she
face
said,
in
girl,
mine, like,
you don't see me sitting right here? You don't see me? I'm looking at you.
and I was like, I'm gonna put this phone down and turn the ringer up. But yeah, and instead of just being like, wait for her, that's rude, you know, I'm just like, she has a point. You know,
Yes.
let me be present. So yeah, I'm enjoying and letting her embrace her uniqueness as
Yes.
well.
And I love that you're speaking of her in that way, right? Her unique specific identity. Because I think in the Caribbean culture, everyone want no like I think in the pursuit to run from shame, right? Because I think everything is, oh my God, you're gonna disgrace me. Like
Hmm, hmm,
in the pursuit to run from shame, we fall for the programming that, our grandparents and they didn't even agree with.
hmm, hmm.
But in order to acclimate, just the same, kind of the same restrictions that we find in other environments like school and corporate, in order to acclimate,
Yeah.
you want to protect your child and your family member in a way by giving them this programming
Hmm, hmm.
of what their identity should be so that they can be more acceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, you know, pick your partners who you're gonna have a child with very wisely. We
Girl.
were very aligned in terms of how we want to raise her. We're both very invested in the education and the development, and he'll send me like articles about separation anxiety or this. And there's just too many resources in 2025 to say I didn't know or
Yes,
making certain we're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable.
absolutely.
But if I can do, you know, she was really difficult to sleep and everybody gave me, you know, their 2 cents on what she needs to do and blah, blah. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to bring in a sleep like coach and just get somebody to train her.
Yes.
And it was the best 220 pounds I've ever spent in my life. And I
Nice.
got a professional to come
Yes.
in and support it. And
Yes.
now I can go anywhere in the world and she has a nap. She goes to sleep. She puts herself to sleep, whatever. I remember I went back to Trinidad and everybody's like, what? She just goes to sleep and by herself in a crib. And they couldn't believe it. And I'm like, the resources, you know,
The
just don't
resources work.
like,
Everything
yeah,
is not bush tea and, a warm rag. Like,
no, no. And I get that's how you raised us and we
yes,
survived. And I hear that all the time. But you
yes.
see, me and my child, I want to sleep. Okay. So I was like, we're
But
doing things
also, when
differently.
you know better, you want to do better, right? Because
Exactly.
while I say this to my family all the time, yes, we're here and, we lived through it and survived through it. So if it was good for us, it should be good. Same thing for my daughters, right? But I think once you know better, you have the ability to do better and helping shape the identity, especially we have daughters. We are raising Black women
Hmm,
in this world. You have to
hmm.
be mindful of that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, how do we help them navigate that with a strong foundation, right? Because it will
Yeah.
always be a journey. Listen, we're gonna be sitting
Yeah.
here at 80 something sipping tea, you know what I mean? Clinking our cocktails like, girl, I don't even
Yeah.
know. It's a journey, but I just think if we are well on this journey, it's so much it's so much more fruitful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And as River's biracial
Yes.
and she's growing up in London in the UK, and it's not, we come from a world where black is black, but
Yep.
that's not the case here. And I think it's going to be really interesting seeing how she leans into her identity,
Mhm.
as having an American Caribbean mother
Yes.
and as well as a white English father and family. And it's the reason why I wanted to raise her in East London is I wanted her to be in an environment where she feels comfortable in her identity. She doesn't feel like she needs to tick a box. And
Mm.
one of her best friends in nursery is Japanese and Russian. Like she's
Yes.
in her element, and
Yes.
she's exposed to different cultures and mixtures and backgrounds. And but I did it because I wanted her to feel confident in her identity and not feel
Yes.
like a fish out of water somewhere.
And I also think what's most powerful than anything else is that I am River, right?
Mhm.
And I think I came to that junction as well as a young, like I want to say in elementary school, right? Because people always tell me you don't. I remember being so irritated as a child, people telling me you don't look like a Jamaican. Like, what does a Jamaican look like? That's the most ignorant statement I've ever seen, I've ever heard.
Mhm.
But I always feel like I am Sanika, right?
Mhm.
These boxes were created to make human beings easily digestible, right? To
Mhm.
make their
Mhm.
identity easily
Yeah.
digestible to the masses. What if
Yeah.
none of us are just a box?
No, no. And I think when you challenge somebody and you don't fit in their box of what they perceive, that's what gets like uncomfortable.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed.
But I love this discussion because I think it helps shape the definition of what an identity should be. It actually is uncomfortable.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because an identity is a journey.
I
Who we
think for me,
hmm
I feel like identity should be looked at as multiple things can exist at once, right? So I can be Black, I could be of mixed heritage with the Asian last name, I could be Trinidadian, I could have, American cultural experience. I could be all these things at once. One doesn't cancel the other. If
Yes.
I'm checking Black on a box, it doesn't mean my grandfather wasn't Chinese. You know what I mean? Like it's not, and I think it's this idea of one identity canceling another.
Um,
I am bisexual. I happen to marry a man.
yes.
It doesn't cancel that as my identity and who I am.
Yes.
And a lot of people are like, why do you still even, acknowledge or
Identify.
recognize, identify it exactly? And I'm like, because I didn't stop,
Yeah.
because I am. Like it didn't just go click, no more, it still
Yes.
exists. So
Yes.
identities can exist and coexist all at once.
Yes.
And I think that's fine, and I think if people accepted that, it would just be a lot less labor intensive because they're like, but you said she's from so and so, but why did she do that? And this and this. And I'm like, you're spending so much energy trying to figure out this person when they're just showing up as this is who
Who
they
th-
are.
that part. That part. I
I
love
mean,
that.
but we're just all guilty of it, right? And it's just being Caribbean. Like, and my husband calls me all the time. He can't tell me a story and not tell me who they are. He's like, so and so, and this person got in an accident. I was like, and they were from. And he's like, why do you always need to know that? I was like, I'm sorry, but when you're Caribbean, you need faces. I need to know. I
I'm
need
trying
like,
to
I need
illustrate the story in
context.
my
I need,
mind. Give me
I need
all the things.
context. Context. I'm like, African from what country? Trinidad?
Yes.
Is he
Ghana,
this?
Nigeria.
And he's like,
But
why you
then
need to know all this?
yes, but I also say it forces us to challenge our own belief system,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because when someone's like, oh, she was Trinidadian, we know that we all have inherited biases, right?
Hmm.
So when
Hmm.
you hear she's Trinidadian, in your mind, you think she is like this. Oh, she was in there cussing up the place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
hear she
Well.
was Jamaican. Oh, she had an attitude. And you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But I think exploring your own personal identity, it forces you to look straight at your biases.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that completely. And I think the cultural norms thing has been really interesting here
Yeah.
because it's weird. I get this kind of like diaspora pass because I'm Trinidadian. They're like, "Oh, you're not American." I was like, "No, I am very much, but it's just easier for them to identify. And it's just seeing all the different, like, multifaceted views of everyone's identity.
Yes.
African Americans are like this, and Caribbean people are like this, and Nigerians are like this, and Ghanaians, and you're this. And it just, yeah, like people feel really comfortable in that. And what I appreciate is like conversations like this where I get to pull back the layers and introduce more of myself to people. I
Yes.
don't cook. I don't care to cook. I don't like cooking. I love to eat, but I don't cook. Right. And people come in my house and they can't believe all that food's cooked by the English white man. And I'm like, I don't cook. So I don't know what to tell you, like, so yeah, like a lot, most Trinidadian women are proud and they
Oh,
cook. And it's
girl,
just
you
not
listen, you
me.
preaching to the
Not,
choir. I remember being a teenager telling my mother, I ain't doing all this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because they will come in the kitchen, look how much seasoning you put and how you cut. And I'm just like, I'm not doing all this. Granted, I cook now, but not because I want to, or out of sheer necessity. Out of
there you
sheer,
go.
I'm not one of
There
those
you
people
go.
that's like, come on over, I'm gonna make you a spread. I'm gonna call a caterer because I too want to enjoy said gathering.
Not built
I'm
for it.
I'm
Not
gonna
built
call
for
a
it.
caterer, but what we can do
No.
together is make these cocktails. That's what we can do. We can, but
Exactly.
I think part of the I think again, they were sold the package of what your identity should be as a Caribbean woman, right?
Yeah.
It should
Yeah.
be someone who, you gal you better can cook. Like, you know what I mean? You gotta
Yeah.
cook, you gotta
No.
clean, and then I think
Yep.
so much of this programming steals our essence of who we
Mm-hmm.
actually are, right? Because instead
Mm-hmm.
of you pouring into your interest and listen, I really like to draw, I really like to sew, or I really like
Mm-hmm.
computers, instead of you pouring into the things that your innate interest and the things you love and the things that's calling you, you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I first gotta hit the program.
Right.
I gotta put some energy towards hitting the program of the identity that I was given.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
so many women sometimes get caught up in that, right? Especially after you
Yeah.
have a baby. When once you become a mother, whoa, whoa, here's a new program. You
Mm.
know, it's like who
Yeah.
I always go, who wrote these rules? Who said that?
A man. A man. A man. Who wrote it? He's the only one that
Like
benefits from it.
who said this? It's like soon as you become a mom, and I don't know, it just comes from the ecosystem of like, here's the pamphlet, here's the program. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is who you are. Your identity is mother, and because your identity is now mother, this is what you
Yeah.
should be doing, and this is who you should be.
And I think you should also give yourself permission to change your identity in terms of like what you perceive yourself to be, and everyone evolves,
Yes.
and that is fine, and give yourself permission. But I think it's growth, right? Your identity and how you walk around in your 20s changes very much in your 30s. I'm now creeping, knocking on 40, and
Girl.
I'm just in a different place. I'm in a very different place, and I'm just enjoying the journey, to be honest.
And that I think is the best part, right? Is to enjoy the journey of your identity. I think that is the
Hmm.
blessed place for us to wrap because who you are is who you want to become. And it's an ever changing flow, right? We are evolving, we're growing, and
Yeah.
give yourself grace because sometimes in that growth process, there can be things
Mm.
that you can then account as regression,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
maybe it's not regression. Maybe it's actually you going back to what you should have been doing this entire time.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Joe, thank you so much for this
Thank
conversation. This
you.
is
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
amazing. I always say, this is why I love this podcast so much because sharing our experiences and how we come to identify identity. There's every single person watching this, listening to this podcast can recall the moment that they said, who am I really?
Hmm. Hmm.
And how that has changed so much to who they are today, as well as who they want to be tomorrow. And it's okay to be on that journey, but above all, make time to be well.
Yep, can I agree more?
Oh, Joe, thank you so much. Before we let you go, tell the people where to find you because Joe's a big, big star out here in these streets. I just want y'all to know that. Like, we don't have no
Don't do all
finke
that. Don't do
finke.
all
We don't have no finke finke people on the podcast.
that. I'm super easy. It's who is Jo Wong on everything. So
Yes.
yeah, who is JOWONG?
Awesome. And follow Joe on all platforms. And thank you so much for listening and watching this episode
Thank
of How Do
you.
You Divine Identity? Ooh.